She only needed him to sign a paper, to wear a ring and smile at the judge. But the silent farmer had secrets buried deeper than his fields, and love stronger than she ever dared hope for. Stay until the end, because what happens at the courthouse will leave you breathless. And if you're moved by this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more emotional tales just like this. Chapter 1: The Proposal. The wind tugged at her widow's shawl as she stood in front of the old barn, arms crossed against the chill that seemed to have taken up permanent residence in her bones since Henry died. 3 years gone, and yet grief still sat on her chest like a cinder block. Ellie Mae Carson hadn't planned on running her family's land alone. But here she was, 28, with a weathered farmhouse, fading crops, and a bank breathing down her neck. The foreclosure letter was crumpled in her coat pocket, like a secret she couldn't bear to look at. If she didn't prove to the bank that her land was a viable family operation, they'd take it. That meant a stable household. That meant a husband. A real one, or at least a believable one. And that's where he came in. Thomas Ridge had lived on the edge of her land for 2 years. Quiet as shadow. Tall, broad, and hard-working. Folks said he'd bought the Miller place for cash after showing up out of nowhere. He never spoke unless necessary. Some said he was running from something. Others claimed he'd been a soldier. All Ellie knew was that he fixed her fence last fall without being asked and returned her runaway calf without a word. That made him perfect. She found him early, just as he was hitching up his tractor. The sun was barely over the hills, dust kissing the horizon. He looked up when she approached, pausing only long enough to push his hat up slightly and reveal eyes like storm clouds, gray, unreadable. "I need a husband," she said, without any introduction. Thomas blinked, one brow twitching like a man unsure if he'd heard right. "Not for real," she hurried, cheeks flaming. "Just on paper. For a few months. Long enough to convince the bank I've got help on the land. They won't loan to a single woman." Silence. "I can pay you," she added, her voice breaking. "Not much. But enough." Still no answer. He stepped down from the tractor and studied her like a field he wasn't sure was worth plowing. Then, finally, he nodded. Once. And that was how the deal began. The courthouse was small. One judge. No crowd. A ring from her mother's drawer and a signature on a marriage certificate. Ellie's hands trembled as she slipped the ring on his finger, more from nerves than the cold. Thomas said nothing, didn't smile. Just watched her with that same stillness he wore like armor. But when the judge asked if he took her as his lawfully wedded wife, Thomas's voice, low and steady, echoed through the tiny room. "I do." Those 2 words felt heavier than a vow. Back at the farm, things changed. Neighbors started waving again. The banker stopped by, all smiles and fake charm, now that she had a husband. Ellie pretended like they were building a life together. In truth, they barely spoke. But slowly, that changed too. Thomas never intruded. But he helped. Fixed the barn roof without being asked. Brought in firewood. Shared his tools. He was a man of few words, but his presence was like a blanket against the cold reality of Ellie's world. She started noticing things, the way he paused to let her walk through a door first. The way he looked at the horizon after a long day, like he was listening for something the rest of the world had forgotten. And one night, when a thunderstorm cracked the sky and she couldn't sleep, she found him sitting on the porch, soaked through, boots off, eyes full of lightning. "Why do you stay so quiet?" she asked, sitting beside him. He didn't answer for a long time. Finally, he said, "Too many words lie." That was all. But it was enough to make her heart twist. As spring edged into summer, their arrangement blurred. He brought her coffee in the mornings. She made his favorite cornbread without asking. He taught her how to fix the engine in the old Ford truck. She taught him how to make peach jam. One night, as they danced beneath the string lights hung between the barn beams at the town fair, people looked at them and saw love. She almost believed it, too. And that scared her. Because the truth was, she was falling for a man whose past she didn't know, and whose future didn't include her. Or did it? But just as the crops began to bloom and the bank finally approved her new loan, Ellie came across something that changed everything. She found a photograph in the bottom drawer of his nightstand, hidden under receipts and old tools. It was a picture of a woman and a child. A little boy with the same storm-gray eyes as Thomas. Her breath caught. She had no idea who they were. But she had a feeling that the silent farmer she'd trusted her heart to wasn't just hiding from the world. He was hiding from himself. End of Chapter 1. Broken Heart. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, where Ellie confronts the truth, and Thomas must decide if love can heal wounds even deeper than war. If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more emotional love stories that stay in your heart. Broken Heart. Ellie stared at the photograph as if it might speak. The woman in the picture was beautiful, with long auburn hair and a warm, dimpled smile. She stood beside Thomas, one arm around his waist, the other holding a boy, no more than 5. The boy had his father's stormy eyes and a grin that tugged at Ellie's heart. It didn't take a genius to put it together. This wasn't a relative. This was a family. Her throat tightened as she slipped the photo back into the drawer, her fingers trembling. He never told her he had a son. Or a wife. Or that he'd lost them. She didn't ask. Because somewhere deep inside, she knew. That night, dinner was quiet. The air between them was heavier than ever. Thomas didn't seem to notice, or maybe he did and chose to ignore it the way he did most uncomfortable things. Ellie pushed her food around on her plate, appetite gone. Finally, she whispered, "Do you miss them?" His fork froze. He looked at her, really looked. His jaw flexed, and for a second, she thought he'd walk away. Then he nodded. Once. "What happened?" she asked. Silence. He stood, gathered his plate, and walked to the sink. Ellie's heart cracked, but she didn't stop him. Some wounds bled too long to speak of. The next morning, he was gone. Days passed. Thomas didn't return. His tractor sat silent. The barn doors at the edge of his property remained shut. Ellie worked alone, planting, fixing, feeding, pretending her world hadn't just fractured. But her chest ached with every sunrise. She had fallen in love with him. Not the fake husband, not the helper, not the deal. But the man. The one who quietly stood beside her when no one else did. The one who never judged her grief. The one who brought her wildflowers and said nothing about them. She missed the way he listened. Missed how his silence had never felt empty, until now. A week later, a knock on the front door startled her. It was Sheriff Colton, holding a letter. "Found this in Thomas Ridge's mailbox. Thought you should see it." Ellie took it with shaking hands. The envelope was unsealed. Inside, a note. Scrawled in thick black ink. "Ellie. I wasn't supposed to stay this long. I promised myself I wouldn't get close. But you made this place feel like home again. I haven't felt that in years. My wife and son died in a fire back in Wyoming. I came here to disappear. To bury my name in dirt and silence. You gave me back the son. But I don't deserve it. I'll keep my promise to help until the land is safe. But after that, I'll go. T." She clutched the note to her chest and sank to the floor. Tears came silently, like spring rain. Later that week, Ellie went to town to speak with the bank. Her loan had cleared, and the farm was officially secure. But nothing felt like a victory. The land was safe, but her heart was not. She passed the feed store and saw him, Thomas, loading bags of seed into the back of a truck. He looked different. Tired. Like a man halfway gone. She walked straight to him. "Don't run," she said. He froze. "I read the letter. I know about your family. I know about the fire." His eyes dropped. Guilt darkened his face like soot. "I didn't want to hurt you," he said. His voice was low, hoarse. "You deserved better than a man made of ashes." "I didn't ask for perfect," she said, stepping closer. "I asked for a partner. You were that. You still are." He looked at her, and in that moment, something broke open inside him. His grief wasn't silent anymore. It lived in his eyes, raw and vulnerable. "I don't know how to be anything else," he whispered. "I lost everything once. I don't know if I can survive losing something again. Ellie reached for his hand. Then don't lose me, she said. Stay. Not as my fake husband, but as the man I've fallen in love with. He stared at her, stunned. Then he dropped the bag of feed, stepped forward, and pulled her into his arms. His kiss was like everything she'd waited for, soft, aching, real. And this time, when the townsfolk saw them together, they didn't see a lie. They saw a beginning. That fall, the farm flourished. The land grew rich with harvest, and Ellie and Thomas worked side by side, true partners now. They married again, this time, with vows whispered beneath the golden sycamores behind the barn. No lies. No paperwork. Just love. As they stood beneath the fading sky, holding hands with dirt under their nails and hope in their hearts, Ellie whispered, "Thank you for coming back." Thomas smiled for the first time in a long while. "I never really left," he said. "I just needed you to find me." Final hook, read at end of video. She only needed a man to stand beside her in court, but fate gave her someone to stand beside her in life. And he, the silent farmer who once thought his heart had died in the fire, learned that love doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes, it comes with roots. Broken heart, if this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment about your favorite moment, and subscribe to our channel for more stories of love, healing, and unexpected hope. Broken heart. The days following their real wedding were unlike anything Ellie had ever imagined. There were no grand gestures or luxurious getaways. Just the rhythm of life on the land, shared glances across the fields, the clink of coffee cups in the early morning light, the warmth of his hand on her back as they walked toward the barn. It was the kind of love that grew slow and steady, rooted deep like an old oak tree. But even peace has its own storms. One afternoon, while sorting through the attic, Ellie found a dusty box labeled with Thomas's old last name, one he never used anymore. Inside, she found letters, medals, and photographs from his military service. She sat down, the floor creaking under her, and read through them. Thomas hadn't just served. He'd led a rescue unit. He'd been commended for bravery, twice. There were letters of thanks from families. But one thing made her breath catch. A discharge report. Not honorable. Not dishonorable either. It was medical. He had walked away because the fire that killed his wife and son had been set by someone he'd once helped. An old friend from the army, dishonorably discharged. Someone Thomas had once given a job to. Someone who came back angry when Thomas let him go. Ellie read the report with tears running down her cheeks. No wonder he carried so much pain. No wonder he had run from everything, his name, his past, himself. When she told him what she'd found, he didn't lash out. Didn't close up. He simply sat beside her and said, "Now you know everything." "No," she said softly. "Now I know why I love you." They started something new after that. A tradition. Every Friday night, Thomas would sit on the porch with a journal. Ellie would sit beside him with a cup of tea, and they'd write down 3 things they were grateful for. At first, his list was short. The land. Your smile. The quiet. But over time, it grew. One night, he wrote, "I'm grateful for second chances. I'm grateful you asked me to marry you that day. I'm grateful I finally feel whole." Ellie didn't need anything else. She tucked that note into a book on the nightstand, knowing she'd carry it forever. Then came a winter that tested everything. A blizzard hit late in the season. The kind that swept across the land like a ghost. Power lines fell. Fences were buried. The cattle huddled together, shivering and scared. Thomas worked for 2 days straight trying to save them. On the 3rd day, she found him collapsed in the barn, face pale, breath shallow. Hypothermia. She screamed for help and rushed him inside, wrapping him in blankets, rubbing his hands, whispering his name like a prayer. The doctor said he would survive, but it would be a long recovery. Ellie never left his side. She read to him. Held his hand. And when he woke one night, eyes foggy, she kissed his forehead and whispered, "Don't you dare leave me, Thomas Ridge. I didn't fight this hard to lose you now." His reply was barely a whisper. "I couldn't leave, even if I tried." As the months passed, Thomas recovered slowly. He moved with more care, spoke with more warmth. He laughed more often, even if just a little. That spring, they planted their largest crop yet, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand. Neighbors came to help. Friends brought meals. Word spread about the quiet farmer and the widow who saved each other. Their love became a kind of legend. One day, a young man from the county office stopped by. He asked Ellie if he could write a feature for the paper, about resilience, about rebuilding, about love. Thomas declined at first. But Ellie gently said, "It's not about pride. It's about showing others that healing is possible." He nodded. And so, the story was published. Months later, they received a letter from a woman in Wyoming. It read, "My husband served with Thomas. He always spoke of him with respect. I thought he died with the fire. But reading your story gave me hope again. Thank you for showing the world that even in silence, love survives. Margaret." Thomas folded the letter, tucked it into his journal, and said nothing. But that night, he held Ellie a little tighter. And when she looked into his eyes, she didn't see the storm anymore. She saw peace. Years passed. They built a small greenhouse. Started selling jams and vegetables. The farm thrived. They never had children. But they mentored young farmers. Their porch became a gathering place, full of stories, quiet laughter, and the creak of rocking chairs. One fall evening, as the leaves turned gold and the sun dipped low, Ellie found Thomas staring at the fields. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He looked at her with that old, familiar softness. "I'm thinking," he said, "that I almost missed this life. That you saved me, not with words, but with roots." She leaned against him, heart full. "We saved each other," she whispered. Final video outro. She thought he was just a quiet stranger. But in his silence was a heart learning to love again, and in her courage, a home that could never be taken. If this story touched your soul, please like the video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more unforgettable tales of love, healing, and hope. Your support helps keep these stories alive.